What's up, guys? So today I was gonna look at the trans tunnel just to see what exactly I gotta cut off. So first, I gotta pull out the carpet. What is that? I gotta cut that there. Gotta cut that there. I gotta take this out. And I gotta cut right there. Yeah, so after looking at it, I don't think I want to do that today. Instead, I might pull the rear end off the Celica. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I basically have everything disconnected on the Celica. I just gotta pull the bolts out. But the only other problem that I have is I gotta figure out the e-brake. Should I cut it? I'm gonna cut it. You can't see it, but it's all the way in there. Oh. It's all the way in there. And it's evil. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna cut it. So there's not a lot of light left, but got the rear end out. This thing is ready to go. And what's this we got right here? Looks like we got a little bit of IRS action. Let me go ahead and slide this under and see how it looks. I got the IRS sitting inside the car. I'm exhausted. As you can tell, it's dark outside. Done for the night. I'm gonna see if I can continue this either tomorrow or another day. We'll see what happens. Now that we got a bit of sunlight out, I have the LS400 IRS basically sitting, not perfectly centered. I just have it sitting in the Celica just enough to where I can kind of get a good idea of where things are gonna mount up, just to see what on the chassis is actually gonna get on the way. So one of the things I gotta figure out is I gotta build some turrets coming off of the side, the wheel well. But first, I have to locate exactly where the coilover is gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and use the S13 coilovers. I just like being able to look through basically any catalog for S13 coilovers and be able to do front and rear together and not have to piece together something crazy. I kind of eyeballed the S13 coilover mount that goes onto the LS400 subframe, and they look about the same size, so I'm not really too worried about that. So finally, the parts came in that I've been waiting for. UPS took a little bit longer than expected, but we are going through a pandemic. But regardless, I'm about to show you guys probably one of the most affordable A86 coilover setup. I recently saw that Caleb from Built made a video on how he built the coilovers for his Corolla wagon, but he did it with a Coney setup. And not everybody has a budget to where they can afford $100+ shock absorber. So today I'm gonna give you the secret sauce on probably the most affordable strut insert and coilover setup you could probably go with. So let me show you the ingredients. So some of the things you need: A86 spindle, if you have one. If not, go buy one, go find one. A Volkswagen Scirocco strut insert. This one is a Maxorber brand. I got both of them for 30 bucks on eBay. Hopefully they don't blow out in the next 2 days. A coilover of your choice with sleeve. I decided to go with Civic, eBay Civic ones, since they were very, very cheap. And I could swap these out for basically any other coilover somewhere down the line. For the next part, you're gonna need either a coilover ring. The reason I went with the piping clamp is because A, it's steel, B, I can move it up and down the strut wherever I want to, and if I do find a permanent location, I can just weld it in. And last but not least, camber plate. These are off of the max peating rods that I put on the Celica. These are for an S13, or you can just use the original strut mount. Personally, I don't recommend these. You don't have any camber adjustment. Once you start lowering it, you are going to change your steering suspension geometry. Stuff does not work the same. Yeah, overall on everything, I already had the A86 spindle, so I didn't need to go buy that. But besides that, they're about 125 to 150 bucks on eBay. I got the Volkswagen Scirocco struts, both of them for $38 shipped on eBay. I got the coilovers, which are all four for a Civic. I have no idea what their spring rate is. It didn't even mention it on that website. But I got those for $29.99, all four. Can't really complain with that price. I already had the camber plates. And yes, if you guys are wondering, I did drill out the strut mounts on the Celica to match the S13 one. First things first, I gotta cut the original coil mount on the strut tube on the spindle. So then that way I can start prepping it and figuring out where I'm gonna make my next cuts on it. Let's see what happens. So the next thing you're going to want to do is measure the strut insert. If you have the original Corolla strut insert, you can measure that just to compare it. Or you can put the strut insert inside of the strut tube and then measure from the top of the strut insert to the top of the strut tube. Anyways, so for my situation, I'm going to want to take off 3 inches. So what I have to do now is basically take my strut insert, find a point at the strut insert where I'm going to want to cut it. So for me, I realized that I have about a 1/4 inch of thread up at the top. And I have this annoying weld ring that's still here from the original coil mount. So I'm gonna cut right above it and right under it at exactly 3 inches. So then that way I don't have to worry about grinding this thing out. I'm gonna bevel both ends and I'm gonna weld them back together. So first and foremost, I'm gonna get my measurements and we'll see where we go from there. So once you find your 2 reference points that you're gonna cut at, what I like to do is go ahead and mark it in tape just so then that way you have a clear, concise line both ways through. And another thing I also did is I measured this 1/4 inch shorter than 3 inches, so it's actually 2 3/4, and that's to give myself a little bit of leeway for mistakes. I'd rather go to Home Depot and throw 2 or 3 washers in just to make up for the space than cut it too short and leave myself with, well, a fucked up strut. So now it's time to hit the chop saw, get this thing cut up, and then we can start prepping it for welding. So this is the aftermath of cutting the strut tube. Now it's time to weld. So personally, I would have rather have done this with a TIG welder, but I am out of TIG welding gas. So MIG welder it was. It didn't come out that bad. Now I just gotta grind these down, let it cool down, and start prepping the coilover. So this should be your finished product after you're done welding it back together and you grind off the weld. I already got the Scirocco strut insert in there. So now I'm just gonna do a dry assembly just to see how everything looks before I finalize it up. So there you have it, folks. This is the version 1 of the coilovers. So I'm not actually gonna keep this coil setup. I honestly just used it just to show how cheap you can build a coilover setup for, but I'm honestly gonna go with ground control somewhere down the line because I also want at least a 7-inch sleeve. I think this is about a 3 or 4 inch. I would just like to be able to have a full range when it comes to adjustability. I know I'm not gonna go that low, but it's always there. So I gotta run to Home Depot, get some paint. I need to get some washers just to clear up that little space in between the strut insert and the cap. Then I gotta start doing the exact same thing I just did to this strut to the other strut, so then that way I can prep them for paint and have myself some full built coilovers. Off to Home Depot I go. So I went to Home Depot and that was basically a bust. These were the only washers that I could find that were 3/4. So they fit on the strut with no problem, but they are way too big for the inside of the actual strut insert tube. So I had to go to O'Reilly's and I picked this bad boy up. I don't know if you can see a difference. I can. It's huge. It's there. But camera was dead. Put this thing back together. Finally threw the set screws that hold the sleeve in place. Locked the clamp down. Went ahead and threw in a spacer, and also I put an O-ring. Grab that right now. I know what it looks like. It is not for that. Just to help keep the strut insert in place. I mean, I can't really complain with this setup. It's my first time building a coilover, and it was a lot easier than I expected. Somewhere down the line, I'm gonna go with the Scirocco short stroke strut insert. I'm also gonna go with the ground control coil and sleeve setup. Who knows what the actual spring rate on this thing is, because I have no idea. So I'm gonna throw the hub and brake assembly back on this thing just to see how it looks and mount it on the car. Got everything all assembled. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. I spent less than $100, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw it on the car. Alright, so here we have it all mounted up. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the passenger side one off camera, but for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was definitely fun building coilovers for the first time. I did not think it was gonna go like that. It was actually a lot smoother than what I thought. In the next video, we're gonna be finishing up those front radius rods and we're gonna get started on that rear end and also cutting the transmission tunnel. And for everyone that's been waiting on something on the Celica, do not worry. I'm gonna start working on knocking out that IRS rear end. It's gonna be fucking stressful, but I'm ready to take it on. So I really do hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of IO Garage. Have a good one.